Hi everyone. I just wanted to get out in front of this month's meeting video to let you know that it ends kind of abruptly because I was recording the Zoom meeting and lost audio, and I think I was having some connection problems. So I had to bail on the meeting, and so it wasn't all recorded. The very last part and the Q&A are missing, but I hope you enjoy it anyway. Here it is.
Okay, I got a talk prepared today about my trips to South America. I've been going there ever since 2005. I'm 34 years old, so that's quite a bit. Ever since I was 18, I went to the rainforest. As I got like 200 and something thousand photos from the rainforest, and I'm really undecisive which to use, I will just show you the best pictures from the best trips I had so far. Yeah, so that we don't exceed like an unnecessary amount of time to see all the pictures that I have. Okay, the title of the presentation is 6 Years of Herping in South America, Best of Amphibians, Reptiles and Other Interesting Things Deep in the Rainforest. I'm Andreas Zarling. We will see my face later in the presentation because I pop up every once in a while. And I hope you enjoy the talk. Okay. My first steps were when I was 18 years old and I went to French Guyana. That was in 2005. I was finishing school and then I went to French Guyana on my own with a 40-kilo backpack. And it was heavy and it was unnecessary. But it was the first time I went to the rainforest, and I had an old analog camera, a SLR camera with a film. So I took a ISO 400 film that I bought like 50 rolls. And I went to the rainforest and took pictures that looked like I time traveled, but that's actually French Guyana in 2005. You see a lot of Anolis marmoratus all over Cayenne, the capital city of French Guyana. So that was the first anole I saw in my life in French Guyana. And I think it's beautiful because that one is really strong, apparently has like a lot of muscle. That's where I took my first break, and this guy fell into my lap from the tree above me, and that's a really, really freshly hatched Tecadactylus rapicauda, if I'm correct. And it was tiny and it's a really nice gecko that's pretty common there, but you see that it was like too small to even like take a good picture because like I had like a beginner camera and the old analog one, so I was not really successful. The main reason for which I went to French Guyana was because I wanted to see Atelopus. I'm a big fan of the Atelopus toads, which have like really short digits on the fingers, and then they are really interesting from coloration to reproductive behavior, and most of them are already extinct, so I wanted to see some of them in the wild. And for that picture only, I was really happy because I saw some of them, a lot of females and some amplexus, which is the hug, the backpack ride, the piggyback ride they do in order to fertilize the eggs as soon as they get to a suitable creek. And of course, as a frog person, I wanted to see Dendrobates tinctorius, the dying frog. And then I saw my first one, that's the first tinctorius I saw in the wild, which is the Cayenne or Montmaturi locality, which has white stripes and blue legs on a black background. That's a really nice one because it's pretty tiny. Not commonly seen in the hobby anymore, but a really, really pleasant sized frog. It was like an inch and a half. So that's a really tiny one. That's where I spent my time because I went with some hunters to camp in the forest, which was a little bit like, risky because I didn't know those guys, and we drove by boat a few hours into the forest, but it was nice because there was a lot of really cool places and dense forest, and I was swimming with the kids there because you couldn't do anything and I had no experience in the rainforest, so I was swimming and relaxing and like just walking around. But it was really fun because they made really nice dinner. We went pleco fishing, And we pulled out some giant plecos and put them on the barbecue, and it was really cool for my first rainforest experience. Okay, the next step is Colombia. I lived in Colombia for over 4.5 years, and I saw a lot of places, and you maybe know the Orinoco River, which is a great place, a little bit remote on the border to Venezuela. But we went there anyways with a university trip. And that was a really different kind of place. I've never been in that area, which is kind of savannas. That's like the river, the Orinoco. And on the other side, you see the beginning of the Tepus, the Table Mountains in Venezuela. That's Venezuela on the other side. So that was really, really cool. That's the adjacent gallery forest to the rocks. And we found a lot of like pools there, which were full of crocodiles. I could not see one, but there are some. But what we found was a mata-mata, yeah, which was pretty cool because that one is like, it was over a foot, it was big, yeah. But it was smiling, so it was really happy to see us. That's what you look like when you find a mata-mata. I live in Colombia for 4 years and lose like 40 kilos or something. That's what you feel like. There's a lot of jaguars in there and it's really hot. We had like one day, I don't know what the equivalent in Fahrenheit is, but it was 57 degrees Celsius in a day. And we were spending like 10 hours, 12 hours a day on the rock looking for frogs for a university project. So it was really hot and you found like cadavers and skeletons of animals there because everything eats each other and then that's what's left over. That's what it looks like when your tent gets into a really bad storm, because that is exactly where my tent was. Yeah, so it was just pouring on that one spot, and that's our place where we came from. We were sleeping in like soaked tents, and there was like 2 inches of water in the tent when we came back because we left the door open. But it was worth it because we found a really cool frog. That's a Leptodactylus litonetes. It lives on the rocks. It has a really high temperature tolerance. The tadpoles can like endure water that is over like 90, 100 Fahrenheit, and they still thrive there. And the frogs use the temperature in the night to digest the prey. They eat a lot of like giant worms. You've never seen a worm like that, like 2 feet of worm. And they dig them out and they eat them. And that's where they sit to digest. That's another one. That's a Boana boans. And they all are in the middles, in the centers of the bromeliads because they give protection and they are, well, a refuge in the heat, and also it provides humidity. That's rainforest, which I prefer more because it's really cold. That's like almost a cloud forest. And that's the west flanks of the Andes Mountains. And that's where my favorite frogs come from. We have to cross some paths that are not really well maintained. That's a bridge from an old power plant they built in the mountains. And we use those to get across some really nice waterfalls and stuff like that. Until I hit my leg on a stone in the river and I ripped an artery. So that was a little bit bad. Looked like that. I had to get surgery afterwards. So my first trip to my favorite frogs was ending like that. That was after the injection of morphine. That was really nice because it felt good. That's a Sobralia pulcherrima, which is a really nice orchid. And there were walls of them. You cannot imagine, like maybe a football field of those in like diameter. It was crazy. It's nice. And their habitat to those frogs, that's Epipetobades boulangeri. And just in that valley, they have the yellow stripes. Normally they are white. Then you find some smaller dendrobatid frogs. That's Andinobates, which the name suggests comes from the Andes mountains. This is a species that's probably new and undescribed, but it's close to a species that's called Fulgurita. Those are more poisonous. That's a hybrid from two species that occupy that area, but a really nice one because they're really colorful and they're bigger. Like that one is 2 inches. That's really huge. And the funny thing is, as they are hybrids, they have a lot of variation in coloration and also in toxicity. And the toxicity, you notice that if you don't do lab analysis, by the smell of the frog. If they're really poisonous, they smell like flies, fruit fly cultures. And if they are not, they don't smell of fruit flies. I found that really, really, really surprising and like interesting, because we had like 200 frogs or something that we sampled, and it was just like half of them were smelly and the other ones not. They're beautiful. They were recently described as a new species, which I don't agree on, because it's basically a hybrid population. Yeah, it's a taxonomy thing, like systematics, you have to check if that's okay, but just looking at them, they're awesome. And that's one of the parentals. That's the species I came to see. That's Ophaga lehmanni, one of the most endangered poison frogs there is. And it's just awesome. They are glowing in the dark. They are really bright red. And they have like the white fingertips, and they quack like dogs, like ducks. You just hear them going whack, 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 whack all the time. And that's why they're really easy to find, basically. Okay. Okay, so that's the most beautiful frog I've seen from the lehmanni populations. That is a really nice specimen. Okay. Now let's go to a place called Leticia. If you ever want to go to a place where you see like 1,000 of something, go to Leticia, because that's in the Amazon, the Colombian Amazon, and it's just like action everywhere. You see snakes trying to eat poisonous frogs and getting like really sticky with the poison, eyes burning, and then like covered in ants, because everything fights everything. And that snake was not really happy because it, well, lacking the arms, yeah, you cannot wipe your eyes. So it got sand in there, it got ants in there, it got everything in there. In the night, it's really nice to see some anolis. That's a transversalis, which is one of the most beautiful species, if you ask me, like the blue eyes and the green bands and the brown pattern. That's really nice. And they hang just on the side of the path. You walk there and you check occasionally, there's one hanging down, sleeping somewhere, and you can just like pick him from the tree and put him on a leaf to take a nice picture, because they are sleeping. Like they really don't notice if you move like quietly. And then they wake up from the first flash, and then they check for half a minute or something to what's happening, and then they run away. But like in that time frame, you can take nice pictures. A lot of insects, like a lot of them everywhere. That's kind of a grasshopper locust thing. Scorpions, you see just everything there, yeah. More spiders. I always collect them with my face, because that's apparently the method. Yeah, at least for me, it's like I don't see them because I look for frogs, and then I got like the spiders on my head everywhere and crawling around. That didn't happen with the sloth, but it's the middle one, not the left. Yeah, that's me. So for those of you who were wondering who is talking, that's me, like on the left, I said, with the glasses. Yeah, it's the Amazon. Like even tourists go there, want to see some animals, and the indigenous people go collect like babies or hunt the parents and take the babies away, and they let you take pictures for a few bucks. That's a lungless salamander. That's a bolitoglossa. They don't have lungs because the oxygen from the environment is enough to sustain them. And they have a really huge surface and a little volume. So the ratio is perfect for them to thrive without breathing. which is interesting, but I always get like a little bit panicky when I see them because I hold my breath trying to compete, and that doesn't work. It was rainy season, so you see a lot of tree frogs. Those are Dendropsophus zarayacoensis with one S, it's a typo. They were everywhere, like hundreds. And they're beautiful, except for like, for me, that kind of mating seemed a lot of inefficient and not that much fun. But there was babies everywhere. Like we came at the end of the rain season, and then the first clutches developed, and then just everywhere you walked, there was babies, and that was really, really interesting. That was the best experience I had in, I think I went there 12 times or something. Those are nice, they're really tiny, and they have like a high-pitched call, and they are the triangle morph of Dendropsophus, or the triangle species, because the pattern on the back looks like a triangle. And that's another one, and you see like it's calling that much that it's almost losing the shape of its head because the air goes in to the lip, the underlip, and then looks a bit weird. And that's the baby next to it. That's beautiful. It was really cool. Like the tiny frogs everywhere, you have to watch not stepping on them. It's a different species, and it's like that was within like a 2.5 meters of walking. 3-4 species of the same genus. That was really cool. And like egg clutches everywhere in the water. That was really cool because you saw the embryos already developing. And the spiders eating the baby frogs. That's like the predator of the freshly hatched frogs is that kind of spider. And they can walk on the water, and that one even is like breeding and reproducing everywhere. So that one is called, carrying like a nest. That's a poison frog clutch. That's from Ranitomea. Toraro is the species. And we found some clutches after looking for them everywhere. And then our indigenous guide said that, yeah, we're looking in the wrong places. You have to chop down the outermost palm leaves from a plant that's called Palmera brava, which is like a huge heliconia kind of thing. And then you pull them out, and they put them in there, but just above the water level, like a few millimeters above the water level. So you never see the eggs in bromeliads or something. That was really interesting. Those are from Amerega haneli, which we will see in a second. And they are easier to find because they just put them on a leaf or on a wet surface. But eggs everywhere, frogs carrying tadpoles everywhere. That's Amerega haneli, which is really beautiful, but really shy. That guy was angry, but I managed to put him in a nice position and take a good picture. That's a Bufo margaritifera in that time, and now it's a Vinelli. And it's a male. No, it's a male, yes. A small one. And they're everywhere. And everybody, every one of them looks different to the other one because they camouflage in the leaf litter. And then a lot of diversity is a good adaptation to that. So they are really, really diverse. You don't see two of the same coloration. This is a popular snack in Colombia, in the Amazon region, which is the larvae of a beetle that basically destroys palm trees. And those are really huge, fat, and really delicious because they taste of peanut. Like if you roast them, it's like a peanut flavor. But the thing is that the body is so fat that if you eat them, you bite in it, like you get, it's like a cup of palm oil, warm palm oil, and then just the skin and everything around is crispy. So that's an acquired taste, I would say. Nonetheless, you go there, you eat them. That's really nice. That's a gas station in the Amazon because everything happens by boat. That's another one. It says peligro, and you shouldn't smoke, but they do it nonetheless. That's us looking for frogs. Me on the left again, and my buddy Camilo on the right. Sometimes you don't see him right away. but that was we were looking for the waxy monkey frogs, or what is it called, Philomedusa bicolor. That's a monkey frog, and those are huge. And we made him climb down by imitating his call. So he walked down when we made him like really aggressive by imitating him, and then he just walked down the tree, and it was a really nice one. Okay, let's go to Brazil now. That was last March before the pandemic hit. I managed to get to Brazil with my friends to look for some really cool frogs, the ones that we saw in the part of French Guyana. And that's what the streams there looked like, and it was really beautiful. And we were looking for Dendrobates and others from northern Brazil. So to give you an idea, I was in French Guyana in the first trip. Next to it is Suriname and Guyana, so the poison frogs are from that area that we keep in the hobby. But this time I went here. It's Serra do Navio, which is a small village in the middle of the rainforest. You see like the line. It's just like one street going there. It's 200 kilometers from the next big city, and it's in the middle of the rainforest, so it's nothing around. Except for a huge gold mine, and that's why the place exists. That's what it looks like in Brazil most of the time, like a lot of deforested areas and patches of forest around. That place is quite remote still, but like people can claim land. Like if you get a square kilometer of land and you put a fence around it or like some markers, you can keep it after a year, it's yours. And then they use it by, they say, preserving 80% of the forest, and then well, doing agriculture on 20%, but most of the time it seems that it's like mixed up a little bit, and it's the other way around. Yeah. So that's when you go to rainforest, it's mostly like clean cut, and then there's forest. Yeah. Which affects the forest because there's a hot air coming in and sun shining in, and then it's like a few hundred meters until it's really undisturbed forest. If you get in far enough, it's really nice. There's like dense rainforest from the Guyana Shield, which is the whole area, like French Guyana, Suriname, Guyana, some parts of Venezuela, and North Brazil. And a lot of philodendron, really nice ones, growing everywhere. That's for the arid people, that's really cool. A nice, almost crystal clear creek with some tannins in there, so it's brown water. And Atelopus to the sides, and probably those, I was told, are Atelopus tadpoles, but I thought it was a tree frog that I saw hopping around there. Maybe it was just coinciding, like at the moment. Really nice Home Depot bromeliads, not the really nice bromeliads from Tropiflora or what you can get in, or Michael's bromeliads in Florida, but the standard ones, we would say, but beautiful because they are from there. Should be a lingulata or some kind of Guzmania. A Philodendron laciniatum, I think. And a lot of bromeliads on the trees, so it was beautiful. That's probably where little Ranitomea amazonica and stuff like that come from. That's a short video impression. I will leave you here for 3 minutes and drink something quick. That's the rainforest. There are little differences. You see, this one is more swampy, and then there's no poison frogs, for example. But those toads. Yeah, it's quite dense. Most of the time you need like a machete to go through the forest. But it's good because then you see a lot of frogs because they're hiding. They don't like predators coming from above, so they are most of the time in the really dense parts. That's the Atelopus habitat because it's close to a stream and the males are there all year round. And Yeah, it basically looks like the garden of a retirement home in Florida, but you know what I mean, like heliconias and stuff like that. Still beautiful. There was a creek where the locals went swimming and the Atelopus went to put their tadpoles and their eggs. And that's a male Atelopus, and they live on the rocks next to the river, and they communicate by calling or waving their hands, because they have like the palms of their hands are red. So it's a visual signal to wave to the other ones. If they're successful and they find a female, which only comes into the creek in a reproductive season, they sit on top, and yeah, well, and you find those there. That's I found out it's a juvenile Osteocephalus taurinus. That's a really nice one. It attacked me, the beast, yeah, but I managed to keep it like in place. Nobody was harmed. And that's basically like, for a lot of species, that's the habitat, like geckos, Pterodactylus, and all that stuff. Amoebas, they all live there, yeah. Even turtles, tortoises, everything, like that's habitat. And really nice locusts. In Germany, we say grasshopper. Yeah. I saw a picture from somebody who went there in the 70s. And one of the pictures was this one, like of that species. And he said they're really hard to find. And one of the first things we found was that one. So I was really happy, and I took a picture as a proof. Yeah, just look at that. It's a lot of leaf litter. It's mostly green. There's just no like really colorful bromeliads in there. And it's basically just like grass, plants, leaves, and a little bit of wood next to water. That's most of the time the habitat of Atelopus and stuff like that. Here they are, which the pictures were taken with the main camera, so they are really better quality than the cell phone ones. Those are whitish green. Normally they're yellow, but in that creek they can be even pink. But we didn't find pink ones because it was really dry. We went at the end of the rainy season because it was just like an exploratory trip. And then we accepted the fate that we might not see everything. You find some anolis. I don't know the species. That was a female. And that's what it looks like if you roam around on the creeks and look for frogs. Like it's really dense, and you have to like climb over stuff or climb under stuff, and you get really dirty and everything gets wet. Like the cameras, normally you just like after a few years in the rainforest, you lose every sense of like protecting them, because they get wet all the time and you cannot do anything about it. You take a Ziploc bag, and then when it rains, you put it in there, but it's like the humidity in the Ziploc bag already makes it really wet. So lifespans of electronics are really bad in the rainforest. That's like a short video, a minute. It's really cool. It's like the Disneyland rides, but like without those puppets singing, but a lot of rainforest. And the people really know their way around. Like if I went there and I tried to steer that, I would probably sit on the next rock in 2 seconds. But they see like the turbulence and then like the currents, and then they just like know where to go. For me, it looks all the same. That's the place where we went. There's a fallen tree which was full of glass frogs, and we were sitting there, and it was really, it was quiet, like quiet, no civilization, just like a hut. That's where we were sleeping, and rainforest around it. That was beautiful. There was this guy. I'm not sure the species name. I saw it on the endangered list of species in the airport of Amapá. And the guys caught it, and they tied it up and they put it in the forest. And they said like they have to store it there. And I suspected they want to eat it, but it turned out that was like a misunderstanding. That's how we take pictures of a turtle. I will explain in a second. The guy, I was talking with the guy in the video, you cannot hear it because first of all it's in Portuguese and then it's just like no sound now. He was telling me something and my Portuguese is not that good, my Spanish is way better. He said that they need to keep it out of the river because it will tell the fishes that they're there, and then if they go fishing, nobody will eat. Yeah. And Matt said, what did he say? And I said, he said, you can release it now. That's like, how do you say, applied conservation. Yeah, because those are really rare. And I suspected that they probably eat it as well. And he said, no, I'm not eating it, but don't put it in the river. And I said, Matt, put it in the river. He said, put it in the river. It's okay. So I was, as a chaperone, working to help the species, but like to get Matt in trouble. Flip. It's in the water, and we did not catch a single fish because it probably told all the fishes, which for me is absolute nonsense, but for them it's like they believe. And the glass frogs from the fallen tree. That was really nice as well. And a snake, a tiny one, but a nice one. It was sleeping on like a palm leaf, and we woke it up, and it was really wet because it was raining all night. And you find a lot of Atelopus there, but from a different population with a different coloration. Yeah, that's more yellow and white. The other ones were green and white, and the hands are not colored anymore, but almost like pale compared to the other ones. After a long trip, you follow the rainbow and led us to the local bar. Yeah, because in the evening you don't find frogs anymore, but you have to do something. And in the rainforest villages, it's just like having a drink. It's like really nothing else to do. The shops are closed most of the time, and there's just nothing else to do. And it's probably like the loudest store in the place always. And then people sit there. So we had a beer every evening, met a girl named Petra, and went looking for frogs drunk. That was really fun because we went up that street to the left and there's rainforest. And then we found a lot of tadpoles of Philomedusa and stuff and hatchlings. That was really cool, like just by walking around. And the glass that, the cup that he has in his hands is for cachaça, which is like the cane sugar liquor. That was like 40 cents or something like that for a cup like that. And we had like 2 or 3 of them. It was fun. That's a nice fight, Atelopus fight. That was a waving on the right side. Yeah, it's boring without the sound. That's unfortunate. But it's basically the behavior. Atelopus sigal and Hogmödeli in Big Trouble on Little Baumstamm. Baumstamm means tree trunk. And that's how they fight. And you think like a tiny toad doesn't have like a lot of force and it would be like not that violent, but it's bad. Yeah, I've never seen them beat each other up like that before. Like the other one is on the back and he's going like, oh my god. But he's a sore loser, so he goes attacking again. And the call is to establish the territory afterwards or before, basically saying like, you go away, and the other one says, you go away, that's my place, and then they fight for it. That's an Osteocephalus taurinus sleeping. Most of them are active in the night and sleep in the day, so most of the time you can just pick them up from a leaf if you find one, and they wake up in your hand for the picture. That's our guide before we found the frogs that we were looking for. That's him after we found them, because we went there for not those that we found everywhere. That's the juveniles of the toads we've seen so much already, which have a lot of diversity in coloration. This one was almost blue. But those, that's Dendrobates tinctorius Weigold again, but from a population that's really black and yellow. That's a female. On the other side of the female, that's another female. That's a young male. You see that it has like a little bit of a touch of blue. And that male was like, I think, one of the most beautiful frogs I've seen in the wild. That was stunning. And you see those like really beautiful frogs that have a different coloration, and in between is like a 100-meter wide river. Yeah. That's a pair, male on the right, female on the left. Different coloration. And now see, I'm a biologist for a long time. I studied that, and I worked with poison frogs ever since I was 12, 13, like keeping them and breeding them and stuff like that, and doing research. Look on the leg on the left, upper left, the milky substance coming out is poison, frog poison. Normally, Dendrobates tinctorius is not poisonous, but I touched that one and it was really bad. I got poisoned so badly that I had like nausea, headaches, like dizziness, fever, instant fever. And the other guy from the group as well, Matt, got poisoned as well. And our guide then, after I told him that it was really, really poisonous, said, oh yeah, there's an old guy who died here from the frogs. And I was like, oh, okay, thanks for telling us, like right away. In aposematic species, which have like the color signal, like it's a coloration that says, okay, I'm poisonous, and the combination of the poison, it's really variable. Like it could be a few hundred meters and it's deadly instead of just like bad. It's really interesting to do research there, because like those populations are really close, and one is harmless and the other one is bad, like bad. I have touched a lot of frogs and I've been poisoned quite a few times, and like one of the 6 deadliest species, I had them in like 4 in my hand and I survived and everything's good. But that one was horrible, like the worst experience in my life. That was bad. And it shouldn't be. Like that one is one of the lesser toxic species. That's really interesting in my opinion. And it's just like 100-meter difference to the other populations that are harmless. Some of them were almost like light green, mint green. Beautiful frogs, huge size. Side view. That's a morph that has not been seen in the hobby before, I guess. I have not seen those before. We made it to the savannah, and with the real guide, he told us that he knows a place. That's where the savannah meets the gallery forest. There's a lot of like holes in the trees. There's water in there, so that's probably a good sign for frogs. Even though it was really dry, it was really warm. We had like 30 degrees Celsius, 32. That should be above like 90, 95. I don't know. There's a fruits there, so that means that probably insects are there. Very likely insects are there, and that's where the coloration comes from. That's carotenoids in a food source, in a starchy food source, probably, with a lot of fat. And insects eat that, and the frogs eat the insects, and then the frogs have the color. And those are the ones that eat the insects there. That's a Brazilian yellowhead, I would say, with a little bit of a variation, which has like a large parts of black, instead of like all the back in yellow. The belly side is light blue instead of dark blue. And that's like you find them in couples. They jump around together. It's always a male and a female. That's another pair. The male is always a little bit smaller, and the female is a little bit chubbier because most of the time she carries eggs and needs more expenditure of energy for producing eggs. That's where they live, under the rotten trees, and you have to climb down there in the hole and check if there's somebody in there. Most of the time it's like snakes, scorpions, spiders and stuff, and cockroaches. Once I grabbed what I thought was a frog, and I had like a 3-inch cockroach in my hand, and it went like, and I went like, ah! So that was interesting, but I try not to repeat that. I hate those. Frogs are better.